Hello everybody, this is ManuS and welcome to another Eternal Contender series here on EternalTitans.com. So today I want to share an update of my Argenport Control deck with you from before Defiance. The deck got a bunch of cool new tools. It may not be quite a top deck, but it is definitely a pretty solid deck that has been doing well for me in the format, and I know that there are some people out there that really love these dedicated control decks and have already been asking me about the list in recent weeks, so I figured it's time to do a deck tag on it and share it with everyone. Alright, let's take a look. Okay, this is the list. A lot has changed due to a lot of new cards. The new tools we got were Hidden Road Smuggler, Regent's Tomb, Defiance, and Lost Scroll, as well as Adjudicator's Gavel and Mattress Chains in the market, so a lot of cool new tools. Okay, so let's talk about the deck. This is a dedicated control deck, trying to just deal with everything the opponent does, prolong the game, and kind of win incidentally at some point. Most of the time with random beatdown or sort of the Sky King, basically, or sometimes with Elias. There are only 8 units for Hidden Road Smugglers and for Vara. Hidden Road Smuggler is a god-given for this deck. The Merchant before was not that great for control deck. It wasn't terrible, but it was very fragile. It couldn't hold off small units. It couldn't stabilize you by attacking. And it was only good at trading with big units, and only if it didn't die to some incidental damage like a Heart of the Vault or something. Now we have a 3/3 which basically blocks all 1-drops and most 2-drops, forcing the opponent to deal with it, and if they can't, basically stopping them in their tracks. And if it sticks around and you stabilize the board, you can just kind of replenish some health, which is amazing. And the fact that it lets us get green and purple cards is also a pretty big upgrade. And the fact that it is a black market is not a big deal, since control decks usually don't care too much about consistency enhancing markets. They care more about getting a lot of specific utility cards that you wouldn't want in your main deck but want to have access to in the specific situations. In this case, Adjudicator's Gavel finally provides a good Void Hate card for the deck to deal with cards like Dawnwalker and such, which otherwise can be a big problem. Granted, Dawnwalker is not a big deal right now, but it is a card that can single-handedly beat the deck. And Haunting Scream and Dark Return can also be really annoying, and Adjudicator's Gavel is really good at shutting that down as well, for example. Then we have one Vanquish. Since we don't have one in the main, we have enough removal options that we can safely find a good one for our black market. And there might be situations where you would want Vanquish main and just put an Annihilate in the market, but all in all, Vanquish is the most universal, cheap enough for the market, which is great, and it's not that good early, making it a better market card, while Annihilate being better early makes it a better main deck card, basically. Then we have a Burglarize, because that's still the best anti-relic card the deck has access to, and unfortunately in a control deck you usually need that. There are cards like Cookbook, opposing Azindel's Gift potentially, sort of the Sky King, maybe a Pit of Lenectar. There are a bunch of relics that can be problematic. It doesn't come up that often because there aren't that many right now, but it's too devastating when it does to not have an option to deal with them. Plus stealing them can kind of turn the game on its head and make you win the game with their card. Then Azindel's Gift is very important because the deck doesn't have that much card advantage, and there are a lot of decks that generate more card advantage than this deck, but Azindel's Gift kind of just evens that out, shuts off most of their card advantage. There are a lot of decks that have a lot of cards, are not that good at dealing with this card, and then you just drop it, they discard like 5+ cards, and suddenly you are way ahead, and they have a hard time ever clawing back against your hard control approach. So this card has been the backbone of this deck. I think the deck is not really playable without merchants at least to have access to a Sindel's Gift, because you will just be outground by too many decks in the late game. And then Mattress Chains, another grinding tool. It's basically your late game card that kind of puts the nail in the coffin. Turning all your power cards into Slay is really strong. The other ability doesn't come up very much, but it's mainly just turning all your power that you draw into Slays and making sure that you don't lose to a string of top-decked good threats while you don't have enough removal for them. Card has been very good. I had one or two in the I had one in the main for a while, but figured it would actually be better in the market because you have more chance to get it when it's good, and you don't draw into it early when it's clogging up your hand, and it's a bit situational. There will be games and matchups where it's great and others where you don't really need it, and market is a good place for that. Also, it freed up some main deck space for cards like Runehammer that I wanted to fit. Okay, next we have Vara. The card is actually not a very good fit for a control deck because it's basically just a big threat that turns on the opposing removal that is otherwise bad. But the problem is Aegis is just too annoying for this deck that I think it is worth running Vara. Plus the deck can reasonably protect it with discard from Regent's Tomb and Setback to set her up. And she's very good at stabilizing and even taking over the game if she lives, thanks to her lifesteal and how big she is. Dealing with Aegis this way is her main role, especially because you can go like Vara into harsh roll safely against decks like Skycrack, for example, which has a lot of Aegis and otherwise would be a big issue. And it's just too good against aggro not to play her, especially now that we can play her on turn 3 with Lost Scroll. So it's kind of like a high roll slot, and it is often the right play to just market her away against matchups where the opponent has a bunch of removal for her and she's just gonna die and you don't know she's safe from discard. And rather just get something that interacts with their threats and blanks their answers, rather than giving them something to do with their otherwise dead cards. Then we have some attachments for Wanted Poster, basically the Wisdom of the Elders of the deck. It's a bit worse, but it's all we got, and your draw 2s are your bread and butter of a control deck to keep up with other decks. Make sure you hit your power drops while still having enough business to keep up with your opponent's business that are playing less power cards than you do. Then we have 2 Auric Runehammer. We can't always have Vara, and there's a bunch of annoying Aegis cards like Herald and Jotun Feastcaller and that sort of stuff, and it's just still a pretty good removal spell when the opponent has cards that it lines up well against, because it can 2-for-1 them, and you can even now play it on turn 3 with Lost Scroll, making it a lot better than before. So 2 seems like a good number. Then we have 3 Sword of the Sky King, sort of as the top end finisher thing. This is does a lot of things. It's removal, it's a win condition, it is a health gain card basically when you're low on health. Equipping this to gain 8 can also really stabilize you, and the sweepers, spot removal, and the Mattress Chains from the market basically make it very easy to just hit the opponent in the face 3 times with this and end the game. Then we have 4 Regent's Tomb. This card is actually pretty great. The fact that it gives you a scout and helps you get to 8 power is very good. Then the Sabotage is really nice, helping you protect the tomb, setting up Elias or setting up Vara, for example, or just taking away powerful cards from another grindy deck. Sphere Vengeance doesn't come up very often, but when it does, it's great to get free revenge on a Vara or Hidden Road Smuggler, but most of the time it just advances the agenda. The Empower doesn't matter very much, but when it matters, it is kind of nice because you gain extra health because your units all have lifesteal, so it just allows you to attack for that extra health, but it's just not really relevant. The main issue with this card basically is Rizan and Heart of the Vault killing it, but if you are on the play and have Lost Scroll, you can play it and get to the agenda before they can Rizan or Heart of the Vault it, unless they have Acceleration 2, because you will get your Elias on your 6th turn before the opponent gets their 6th turn, and then Elias will just take over the game for you. Getting a free Elias on turn 6 or 7 is really, really powerful, and the deck is fairly good at protecting it aside from the potential Heart of the Vault Rizan issue. And even by the time that happens, Sabotage and Lingering Influence are basically like at least drawing 2 cards from a Regent tomb and gaining you the 2 or 3 health that, because the opponent has to deal damage to it. So a 4 cost, draw 2, gain like 3 health is still pretty solid, and if they have to kill it in combat, it sometimes can gain you a lot of health because they have to spend an entire attack step on killing it. So the card ends up generating more value and playing out better than you might think. But it's not the kind of side that has the same game swingy nature as Howling Peak, and it's harder to get to the real payoff, which in this case is Elias. But if you do, it is really powerful. A free premature Elias is super strong in a control deck. So been pretty happy with the card. Not 100% sure on 4, could be that 3 is maybe a better number, but the card does enough in enough situations that I've been happy with the 4 so far. But it is, the 4s might be a bit of a flex slot. Then we have 4 Defiance, one of the other great new additions. Super efficient, super flexible, even kills like big Warcry, buffed early drops out of Recano decks, for example. Amazing early game removal, and even later you can protect the tomb by stunning a bigger unit before you sweep the board, for example, and stuff like that. It's just very, very versatile, and at worst we still have our merchant to get rid of it. It can be a bit lackluster against peak decks because they don't really have answers for it, but like I said, we still have a merchant for that, and we can use it to set up a 2-for-1 harsh roll, making it not as much of a downside. And then we have 2 Annihilate, which both serves as early game removal 5 and 6, as well as fatty removal 5 and 6, alongside with 4 Slay, which are our like catch-all. It's not the most efficient at 3 and not being fast, but it is flexible, which is what's important here. Then we have 4 Cull the deck, since we don't have Strategize or the like, or Quarry in this color combination. Cull the deck is the next best thing, and helping you to smooth out draws, find the cards you need, find power when you're light on power, find a removal when you need to, or your sweeper is crucial, and I've been pretty happy with the card. I think you kind of want all the card filtering and card draw you can get in a 75 card control deck. Then we have the 4 Lost Scroll. That's an amazing inclusion, getting to harsh roll a turn earlier, dropping Vara a turn earlier, or Runehammer, or even Tomb are super strong, and even getting to your high drops like sort of the Sky King on turn 7 can be really, really strong, or just being able to play 2 things on turn 3, like a Wanted poster and an Annihilate, for example, or Vara's Favor and a poster and that sort of stuff. Just an incredible addition that makes the deck so much better. And for Vara's Favor, because the card is still great, still deals with Aegis or kills small stuff for free, while helping us get to 8 power. Then we have 3 Devastating Setback. The card is not as good anymore because Haunting Scream aggro has kind of vanished for whatever reason, because the deck I think should be still pretty good, but yeah, people like their new toys. And Skycrack is still a thing against Recano. It's not that great, but still decent because they have more stuff that dies to it. A Crownwatch Paladin without Aegis dies to it, their 1-drops die to it, and Sharpshooter dies to it as well, so it's still fine there, not great. Against slower decks, you have the Sabotage effect to set up your later plays, and Skycrack aggro is still probably the best aggro deck. I think it's better than Recano, most likely, and against Skycrack this is super crucial, and without the setbacks you would just lose to the game, to the deck most of the time, I think. So that's why there are still 3 setbacks. And then for harsh roll, I had a 5th sweeper at times, but sweepers are not that well positioned right now, which is also why I cut my sweeper from the market that I had for a while for the Mattress Chains. For harsh roll seems like a fine number together with all the spot removal and relic weapons and units to make sure you don't get run over when in cases you fall behind. Then we have 25 power that can fairly easily afford the 3 Emerald Waystones, and they can provide some nice utility, both just gaining your health and sometimes making your Runehammer kill that 1 attack unit and surviving after the initial blow, but more often it's gonna be a make or break moment for your Sword of the Sky King, either against an opposing Sword of the Sky King, which isn't that popular right now, or just making it survive a sequence of hits on units that it otherwise wouldn't. it's almost free, so it's pretty nice to run. The 5 Justice Sigils have been enough for the Lost Scroll and Tomb so far, especially now that I'm not running any Privilege anymore. Deck might be a bit light on power, and I could see adding 1 Privilege of rank again to make sure that you constantly hit your power. You really want to hit your 8 power on turn 8 basically, and Privilege also provides potential fodder for Hidden Road, Smuggler and so on. So that's something to keep in mind. And yeah, the rest is just the 12 duels and 5 Shadow Sigils because we have Vara's favor. And the market I already explained. So yeah, this is my Regent's Tomb Argenport Control deck V4. Hope you guys like the list. It plays really smooth, really consistent, which is a big upside of this over a 3-faction deck. It gets much more out of Lost Scroll because of that, because I found in, like, for example, Winchest, a lot of the time you can't even play your Lost Scroll on turn 2 because the deck is not that good at having ready power on turn 2. And if you do, a lot of the time you can't play a 4 on turn 3 because you played your ready power on turn 2 instead of turn 3, and then on turn 3 you have to play a depleted power like a Crest or something, making Lost Scroll a lot less strong and giving you a lot less speed boost early on, for example, and overall making your deck a bit more clunky and wonky, but giving you more power in return. So it's kind of hard to say which is better. There are definitely real trade-offs here, and this deck has felt really nice and really smooth and consistent, and I like that. And it has performing well for me every time I played it so far. Haven't played it as much lately because I've been testing other things and kind of had this list figured out, but it should still at least be a solid deck and serve people that are looking for a smooth, consistent 2-faction control deck to play in ranked pretty well. Okay, as usual, gonna hop into some games and ranked with it, but before I do, you know the drill. Hit the like button if you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification icon, and please help support the free content by whitelisting eternaltitans.com and YouTube on your ad block. That would really help us a lot. So thanks for that, and now on to the games. See you in a moment.